morning, Rotarians. We have one guest with us today, and if Bill Woolridge would please come up with our guests so that you can introduce them.
Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning, Bill.
I think most of you know our guest today. He used to be a member of this club, and he's the one who's guilty of getting me into this club, Scudder Kelvey, who lives in 30 acres. Welcome, Scudder.
Good morning, Scott.
Okay, moving on with our business of the club, I'd like to call upon Jim Ahern to come up, receive his presidential citation from last year for his work that he's done on the greeter chair and the four-way speech contest, as well as a member of the board. You get a new theme pin for this year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bob Cramp, Art on the Green.
Good morning. It's time for Art on the Green again. It is a little late this year, August 29th and 30th, that was mentioned last week. Thought I better get you started to sign up and get my, make sure I have enough people. But for new people, I don't know if I'm scanning around, I don't see a whole lot of new people here, maybe a couple. Let me just tell you, Art on the Green is where the Rotary Club, this Rotary Club, puts together a hot dog and brat stand at the Art on the Green. And we need to staff that with people. And you are the people that make this work. So I'm going to pass this around. There are basically, as always in the past, 5 slots per time period. But last year, I was beginning to conclude we have 4 would be enough for each spot. So if we could fill in and we also had some problem filling all the spots last year. So if you could fill in the first 4 and leave the 5th one blank, and then as we progress through the signing up process over the next several weeks, if we have more than we need, we can fill in the 5th spot at that time. Is that clear? Pretty clear? Okay, so I'll pass this around and we'll get started.
And that Art on the Green, it's not just a good fundraiser for the club, but it's a lot of fun too. Whether you're cooking or serving or taking money, it's a lot of fun. So next on the list is Ron Strobel for the check, the gala check.
I'd like to ask Bill Woolridge come forward, please. I'm pleased to announce that at our gala this year, we raised over $33,000, and one of our major beneficiaries was the Hudson City School Student Assistance Endowment Fund, and which was actually started by Mr. Woolridge. And I would like to present to him a check for $3,000.
Ready, guys?
Yeah. Bill, would you like to say a few words about the endowment fund?
I just want to say a couple of words. We started this fund a couple of years ago, and I think to a lot of people it's kind of amazing that we would need a student assistance fund in Hudson. But of the 4,500 students, about 200 of them qualify for the free lunch program, federal free lunch program. So there's 200 needy families that have kids in the schools. And that's what this fund is all about, because oftentimes there are school projects, there's needs for different things for kids, and this fund is there to provide monies for these kids to go to a special program or involve themselves in some kind of thing that requires a payment of a fee. So if any of you feel so inclined, we'd love to have you make a contribution to this about $70,000 fund, of which we take 4% every year and donate it to the schools who then give it out anonymously to these kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So now it's my distinct pleasure, something we don't do very often, and that is to induct 2 new members. So I'd like to call upon those 2 new members and their sponsors to come up and be inducted. So George Schmutz, there he is, and Rich Warfield, and Lynn Zupp, and her sponsor, Liz Ramsey. So, George and Lynn, on behalf of the board and membership of the Rotary Club of Hudson, it is a great pleasure to welcome you as our newest members of the club. We look forward to the fellowship that we will share, as well as your participation in many club projects that make our community, our country, and our world a better place to live. Rotary is an organization of business and professional people, pledged to uphold the highest ethical and moral standards. Rotarians believe worldwide fellowship and peace can be achieved when business people unite with the Rotary motto, service above self. Rotary activities exemplify the charity and sacrifice that one would expect from people who believe they have a responsibility to help others. George and Lynn, you have been chosen for membership in the Rotary Club of Hudson because your fellow members in this club believe you to be a leader in our community, and because you possess the qualities to champion the message and principles of Rotary. You now become an ambassador of Rotary, carrying the ideals of service to all within your sphere of influence. Our community will know and judge Rotary by your character and service. We will also look to you for inspiration as we strive to become better Rotarians. I now ask your sponsoring Rotarian to invest you with the distinguishing badge and your Rotary pin, which I have right here. Oh, they just switched them around. That's okay. We ask that you wear your Rotary pin with pride, not only to all Rotary functions, but in your many endeavors, as a symbol of your commitment to Rotary ideals and our recognition of your contribution toward a better world. Fellow Rotarians, would you please stand and welcome our newest Rotarians. A closer photo op.
Got it?
All right, I got you all. Thank you.
We're going to ask each of our new members to give us a little 3-minute bio. And so, Lynn, why don't you go first, please? Thank you.
Good morning. I asked Joe to give me a wave at 30 seconds because 3 minutes of talking is usually not enough. I am a physical therapist here in Hudson. I grew up in Ashtabula, Ohio, and went to St. John High School. Claim to fame, I went first through 12th grade to school with Urban Meyer, the coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I married my high school sweetheart, and we've been in Hudson for 20 years. We have 2 children, Emily, who's at Walsh University, and Austin, who just graduated from Johnson & Wales University down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we're hoping that he becomes a famous chef and supports us in our old age. But I graduated from the Ohio State University with my undergraduate degree and went back to school for my clinical doctorate in physical therapy after I'd been practicing for over 20 years, and been practicing for almost 30 years now. And I see people of all ages for orthopedic injuries, surgeries, any kind of pain and problems with mobility. I belong to St. Mary's Church in Hudson. I'm a Eucharistic minister. If anyone hasn't seen it, I was just awarded the Outstanding Physical Therapist of the Year award for Ohio. And and I'm proud to be inducted this morning as a Hudson Rotarian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm George Schmutz. I'm the owner of Printing Concepts right down the road in Stowe. And I don't know who's going to give me the 30-second warning here, because I'll take whatever time that she didn't. I'm new to Ohio. I moved here about a year ago when I bought the company. And I like the idea that you guys support the schools. I actually grew up in an orphanage outside Chicago. My parents were immigrants and from Switzerland and Germany. And when my father died, my mother couldn't support us and moved us there. So we grew up there, and someone's asked me how long I've been in printing, and it's like, I've been in printing forever. Nobody's dumb enough just to get into that. So when I was there at that school, you had to take both college preparatory and vocational training, and not knowing any better, I picked printing. Again, when I was getting out of school, not knowing any better, University of Wisconsin gave me a scholarship, so I go to school to study printing management. So I have degrees. I decided to go crazy there, so I have degrees in engineering, printing management, and business from there. Met my wife of 30 years there, and we have 3 children and 1 grandchild. Unfortunately, they're spread out all out. What like my wife says, you raise your children to be independent, and then they go and do it. And so my son, interesting enough, like my father was a lumberjack, and my son, interesting enough, never knew him, but he's in the timber industry also. He's out in Olympia, Washington, with, more importantly, my 2.5-year-old grandchild. So they're too far away. I shouldn't say this out loud, but one of my daughters graduated from University of Michigan grad school. And there you go. And she's got a degree in macro sociology, and she's director of operations of a nonprofit in Washington, D.C., working with underprivileged youth. And then my other daughter just graduated from the University of Utah, and I don't even know what her degree is. It's educational and 16 things after it. And next week she's moving to Southern Vermont University to take over their housing and civic engagement departments. So anyway, back to me. So I'm from Grand Rapids area, grew up there most of my life, lived there, ran a printing company there. About in 06, decided to get out of that and get into more of went into business with a customer of mine, front end like media, entertainment work, and back end distribution. And did that for about 6 years, and like I said earlier, I'm stupid enough, I wanted to get back into printing proper. So I sold out that 2 years ago and started looking for a company to buy. And I was looking for a good area, good company, not a fixer-upper. And that's why I ended up here. I started really expanding my search, and Printing Concepts was a great company, great room for growth, and we moved to Hudson a year ago and fell in love with it. So, personal note, both my wife and I, we bike, we kayak, we hike, we do all that type. We tell people all of our toys are human-powered, so we don't. So thanks for not cutting me off, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, today is Fine Day. I know it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll call upon our fine meister, Ed Sogan.
I have my lovely assistants, Tom Page, Catherine, if you could stand. If everybody could take money out of their wallet. Brad, take a couple dollars out of your wallet because you're going to be fined here today. And I did see Rich take some out, and there was a moth that kind of flew out of his wallet there. He's quite frugal, but he's great on Fine Day. A couple of things, if you got your hub already, there is a great picture of the fireworks display, and the Hudson Community Foundation did an outstanding job organizing this Independence Day celebration. So how many of our foundation board members are here from the Hudson Community Foundation? There they are. Tom or Catherine, could you get $1 from those guys for doing a great job? They're terrific. The purpose for today's Find Day will be Jimmy's dictionary project with McDowell Elementary School. So again, if you are fined inadvertently and you did nothing wrong, please still kick in. I will start with birthdays are going to be a little later on in the presentation, but Joe had a great suggestion that we make birthday wishes for those people that are having birthdays. So if you have a particular desire and one of our members can meet it or help you in meeting that, you can contribute to the birthday wish situation and on your birthday month. So we'll get to that again in a minute. I have a letter from Phil Makita, and I'd like to read it to you. We had a little sign up to help them with the Home and Garden Tour. This was the 68th year for that. Wonderful opportunity here in Hudson. Hi, Ed. Just wanted to take a minute to thank you and your fellow Rotarians for helping with traffic at this year's Home and Garden Tour. Your assistance came at a critical time when we were scrambling to come up with additional volunteers to fill our assignments. I think there were something like, 60 spots. Thanks to your effort, this year's tour was a huge success. Once again, Rotary came through in fine fashion. We hope to see you again next year for the 69th Home and Garden Tour. The Traffic Committee, Tom James, Phil Makita, and Todd Zedak. We had, again, several people from Rotary volunteer, and we'd like to recognize them now. Ron Strobel actually had 2 shifts. Joe Boisel, were you at your location? With everyone that parked in the parking lot, they got a packet of envelopes for the donations at service. Tom Tobin, Ed Sogan, Dan Williams, and George Snyder. Could we all give them a nice round of applause? Everybody else, could you get $1 out because you didn't help? So. Gail mentioned something, if it gets to $15, and you don't have to pay anymore, so. Larry Santon, again, was interested in helping out. He unfortunately didn't do it, but he questioned me about the duties of parking. He said he was thinking about helping, and then he added, he says, is that a good way to pick up chicks? Larry, another $1 for you, big guy. Okay. A little story here. I was sitting with Bob Crampf last week at the meeting. He was visiting his daughter a while back and asked her if he could borrow a newspaper. And in typical fashion with kids that are younger, her response was, Dad, this is the 21st century. We don't waste money on newspapers. Use my iPad. And here's Bob's quote, I can tell you this, that darn fly never knew what hit him. Okay, we turn to what everybody needs to know in regards to knowledge is the Hudson Hub. I mean, I get everything I know comes from the Hudson Hub. And I'll start off first here with a picture from, or an article, Where in Hudson Is It, by Liz Murphy. And most of you have seen that. There's a little picture there and you try to guess. Well, we had a grand prize winner in our group. Brad Nelson, and let's see, what did he win? Oh, we won a gift certificate to Sal's Barbershop. When are you going to use it, Brad? Pay $1, pay $1. We have another lovely picture here of one of our prominent members. Hudson Community Foundation issues a grant to the Salvation Army office, and right in the middle, Rich Warfield, no pin, $1. Oh, wait a minute. In addition, other honors coming to the Warfield family, Chris Warfield is the #1 disc golf player in Ohio. Another $1. Nice round of applause for Chris. Fortunately, he inherited his mother's athletic ability. We have a picture here of the University of Akron Alumni Jazz Ensemble. Again, this faculty alumni jazz ensemble. There's no Bob Crampf or Dan Williams who are in the group. They were not pictured there. Yeah. Bob, pay $1. He plays the maracas, and Dan Williams is the electric triangle in that particular group. And Dan does give lessons, and if you're interested, please contact him. He's not here today, but great musical group right there from the University of Akron. Rotary Scholarship winners. We have in the paper a great group of kids that we honored with our scholarships, but Catherine and Dan are not in the pictures. So Catherine, if you could pay $1, you're not in the picture here. And Bob, if you could pay another $1 for Dan, he'll owe you. He'll pay you back. Okay, yeah, he's cheaper than Rich. Well, he gets a big salary from city council. How much you guys make a month? $10. Jeez, come on. All right, another article here. Leadership Hudson is looking for future leaders in 2016, and we have a quote from Catherine Sines, Leadership of Hudson member, and she doesn't mention she's a member of Rotary. Please pay $1 for that particular thing. Another in a series of pictures of Gail Royster. This is the 20th time I think she's been in the paper with that same picture, but she is a sponsor of the Home and Garden Club again. And what happens, she is with a plaque here for the house with the barn and that type of thing. It's a great thing, but $2 because you were on the front page, I think, with the same picture, correct? So you can pay another $1 for that one. She's with Lois James, and Lois was the chairperson of that. Lynn Zupp, a new member, she mentioned again she's a parochial school girl, and we did get some of the records because we have to research these new members. She was quite a juvenile delinquent, though, when she was in elementary school. According to the records, she was suspended because of an incident in the cafeteria. And her teacher, Sister Mary Aquinas, led the kids down to the lunchroom one day, and she was teaching them about gluttony and wastefulness, etc. And she put a card up by the apples. And the card said, "Take one apple, God is watching." So Lynn, in typical fashion, gets all the way down to the cookies, and she writes a note. Take as many as you want. God is watching the apples. Okay. We have Rotary anniversaries. Jeff Tong is not here, but Liz Ramsey's here. I think that's 7 years, right, Liz? Okay, $1 from Liz for having her anniversary. Again, with the birthdays. Oh.
How much do we get for this? I'm going to auction this
Yeah.
off.
Oh, that is part of the money that I'm going to be donating later on. Thank goodness I didn't leave my phone. I left my glasses and my coffee cup and everything else. Geez Louise. Last week's meeting. Birthdays. We are not going to, again, sing happy birthday, but if you do have a birthday wish, please, as you're called, Dan Williams is not here. He's on probably another birthday cruise with his wife. On the 13th is Tom Tobin. Anything, Tom, in regards to a birthday wish?
World peace.
Okay, that'll cost you $1. World peace. Joe, you sent out something, right, about this to the membership? Yeah. Oh, just to the birthday people? Tom doesn't read emails. Yeah, he doesn't read emails. Ron Barnhouse is on the 21st. Ron, anything that you were thinking of? Okay, can't think of anything? That'll be $2 for him for not thinking of it.
That's his answer.
Joe Zabatowski. Anything?
And you all have a good day.
Very good. All right, $1 for that. He'll pay for that one. All right, I'm going to give $20 if I can go for a ride in that fancy 1947 Cadillac. My birthday's on the 25th. I was born in 1947. That was a very good year.
What do you say, Dad?
Is it a deal? All right.
Agree? Agree? Bill?
Bring it on, Dad.
You gonna give him a ride?
I think it's 5 miles a gallon.
Tom was just mentioning that Mrs. Tobin wanted Philip to sell the Cadillac. And he took it up to the Acme parking lot, and he put a sign on it, but it said, "This car is not for sale." So surprisingly, he didn't sell it at that point in time. All right. Larry, your birthday's on the 27th. Anything you're thinking of in regards to the birthday wish?
Nothing I can talk.
Okay, all right, nothing he can talk about. I guess he did meet one of those chicks at the Home and Garden Tour. $1 fine for him. And Jim Ahern, 31st is your birthday?
This is a huge opportunity.
I know.
So for $20, I'm going to sell my house in the future if Gail will eliminate her commission.
Sometime in the future, that's right. I think that's reasonable for $20. Excellent.
No, I have a real one. I have a real one.
Okay, that's a real one.
Bob Cramp and Dan Williams went to my college. Dan isn't here, so I'll pick on Bob. I need a Westminster hat. So for $20, if you get me a Westminster hat, I'll put it in. Deal?
Yeah, we'll have a house soon.
I don't care. $20?
Yeah.
All right.
He would prefer a new one too, Bob.
Wait.
Not one.
Yeah, new one. All right.
And finally on Fine Day, Jeff Tong is not here. They had a little setback at their house. I don't know if you read the Hub, but there was a little article about it. The family's dog passed away. Obviously, his kids were devastated, and Jeff was beside himself trying to console them. So one of them said, "Dad, are you sure Sparky's gone?" Jeff said, "Well, let me call the vet and see if there's anything we can do." So he calls the vet, and the vet thought, and he said, "Well, really, I'm sure the dog has passed away, but maybe to make the kids feel better, if you can go in the garage, get a little bit of gas and put it on its tongue, at least you attempt to, kids are doing something there." Jeff went out to the garage and told the kids it would be a last-ditch effort, but he'd give it a try. So he put a little dab of gasoline on the dog's tongue, and immediately, this was in the Hub, the dog got up and started running around the house. I mean, up and down the stairs. The kids are chasing her around. We did that for like 10 minutes and then fell over. Ran out of gas.
All right, very good, very good. I like that. Okay, moving right on to more serious part of the meeting. I will call on Bill Wooldridge to introduce our speaker for today.
Well, good morning again. I have to tell you, our speaker today has not run out of gas. Jane's been here before, so I'm not going to spend much time introducing her, but just briefly, she came to Hudson with a lot of experience and a master's in both public administration and a master's in planning. And she previously served in Ohio in both Oxford and Dayton, and most recently was in Newport, Rhode Island as the city manager. Just on a personal note, I'd like to say, having had a chance to work and spend some time with Jane over the last, I guess it's 11 months now you've been in the city, I've been extremely pleased with how she's gone about her job. She has been, I think, outstanding. We have so much going on in Hudson, and Jane came in and just got her arms around it very quickly. If you went over to our Municipal Service Center in the main conference room, you would see kind of like a bunch of PERT charts hanging up on the wall for all these many projects we have going on. It's really my pleasure to have Jane back again to talk about all these things we do have going on. And it's a great time for Hudson. Jane, thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me back again. I think I'm going to be one of your worst nightmares because I think I'm going to be back here in about 2 weeks for a little bit more celebration. I'll try and be a little more lively at that time. Our website, I think we have a map. I wanted to give you a couple of little things we could, I didn't get the bouncing ball to go with it, though. I would think I was here in October of last year and September, October, and I kind of was basing my comments then on things we think we're going to do. And so I'm back here a little bit later saying things that we are doing. And when I met with you last fall, I talked about 5 council priorities. One of the council priorities was the broadband initiative. And so from October through now, it's gone from something we've talked about, something we've prioritized, something we've built a business plan around. Then in March, we did an implementation plan. In April, we started planning for a pilot program. And by Labor Day or around Labor Day, we'll be turning the lights on, so to speak, and actually having a broadband offering to some businesses in the community. I'm going to step away just for a minute. This is a picture of where we're doing the broadband, and I'm going to explain a little bit. The pilot program is actually happening up here. The pilot program, since we already have fiber laid out Boston Mills Road for the Municipal Service Center, we thought, let's start lighting up a couple of the businesses out there. So we're in the process. We'll have 3 to 8 businesses in those 2 office parks that will get lit up around Labor Day, somewhere between Labor Day and October, beginning of October. Our data center, which is the hub, the nerve center, is down here. Right here. It's down there near the water tower. And that is a central location. That's where all the connections to and from the internet and voice will be. All of our racks of computers and so on will be there. And that gives us a great ability to go right into phase 2, which is zone 1. I didn't number these, so maybe next time I'll pay $1 for the bad numbering job. Zone 2 or phase 2 will be First and Main, all the businesses down First and Main, and we'll be starting to get that information out in the fall and run the wire and the fiber and light those up, we project, by April of next year, of 2016. And then following that, we'll be heading down 91 to get the southern businesses down, all the way down to the Stowe border. We have not started any residential at this point. We're really trying to focus on getting up and running with businesses, getting the kinks out of our system and so on. But as we run these lines, if there were neighborhoods that neighborhood association were able to get a lot of people together in the neighborhood, that's where we're going to start getting into the residential areas. And it'll be several years before we get out too far. But this is kind of our projection of probably the next 2 to 3 years of where we'll be going. We do have Laurel Lake highlighted there. Laurel Lake is considering whether they want to get on our broadband. They're also getting on Time Warner. So several of the businesses are going to end up having 2 providers, one for backup, one for primary, and so on. So that's why they're lit up, even though they're not necessarily going to be on here and active right yet. You'll hear more about this in 2 weeks, so stay tuned. And I think you'll see some news in the papers over the next couple of weeks, kind of leading into this. We're actually using the morning Rotary for really launching what we're doing, and that'll be in 2 weeks. So it's very exciting, and we'll have quite a few people here in 2 weeks to talk about this. So that's that. The next project I wanted to talk about is not this map. So maybe you could go on to the next map if you would. The next project that I talked about back in October was First and Main Phase 2. This is just the city, but gives you something to look at besides me. Phase 2 was just another one of those priority projects back in the fall, and I'd like to be able to say that we're in the process of implementing Phase 2. When I say implementing Phase 2, that's all of the planning and the preliminary work to do. We have a comp plan that's been going on. I mentioned that back in the fall, and that is on our website. The draft report is out on the website. I think we have some public meetings, some open houses to review the findings for that on the 15th of July. And that'll be going through the review and the adoption process between now and probably October, when council will probably consider adopting it and finalizing it. In that comprehensive plan, there's an element for the downtown Phase 2, and that group was really talking about the what to do, the mixes of Phase 2, and so on. And so, so that's being finalized, and that's part of the conceptual. And part of that is that Phase 2 is really going to be comprised of office and residential, with maybe a little bit of retail commercial in it, but that's not the priority, that's not the real focal point. The downtown Phase 2 will take place between where the Windstream property is right now, and that's going to probably be mostly the office space. And then beyond that, where there's the physical plant, which is the bus garage, the Salt Dome, and the Hudson Public Power, will be working, or we are working on relocating those facilities. We have identified sites to relocate them to, and we're in the process of working on design engineering to get those designed and begin the construction in 2016 for those properties. And then we figure between 2016 and 2017, we'll be remediating that site, meaning we'll take down the buildings and put it back into a brownfield, and we'll be working with a private developer, a partner in a public partner project for that. And that property will be some element of mixed-use housing, meaning there might be some condos, there might be some multifamily. That we're still working on. We've got to do some more analysis on exactly what's the price point, you know, who's the clientele. We know that there's a great need for smaller houses for empty nesters, and there's a great need for smaller houses for young professionals that want to live and work in the downtown. So, but what the mix is going to be with that, we haven't totally identified that yet. So that project is, like I said, it's in the process, but the process is the planning and getting all those buildings sited and out of there so we can get things organized. And just so where we're considering, mostly those buildings will probably be relocated down on the Hudson Drive area along that corridor. So that's the second project. The third project was the YDC property, and over the last 6 months, we've worked with an asset management company to identify and kind of confirm what the market analysis is for the YDC property. I think that we've always been thinking that we wanted to put some sort of corporate office type development there. We wanted to make sure that that was actually viable, instead of, well, there's 10 million of those in Northeast Ohio, and there's no way we're gonna get to do that. And the interesting part about that was really starting to understand the changes in the types in how people do work. Offices aren't the same as offices were back before. Offices are smaller, there's more common areas, there's a lot more virtual meeting space that's needed. There's a lot of people work in shared office areas because they work out of their houses and they travel a lot and so on. So the big corporate headquarters that you think about, you know, these big monuments, that's not really a reality anymore. So when we think about the YDC, there's definitely a market for corporate headquarters and research facilities, which is what we're kind of going to be targeting with that, but they're going to be smaller, a lot more shared office space, a lot more common areas, and probably some mixed-use housing up there. Again, what the makeup is, we're not sure. But so from that report, we got, you know, we've got to do some remediation planning, because there's some asbestos steam pipes under the ground that we don't necessarily need to take out, but we need to identify, and so that when we go out with a private developer, they'll know exactly what the liabilities are for that property. We've got to do some zoning, change some zoning and so on. So there's a lot of work going on with that, but it's not like a shovel in the ground that you'll see. But that project is a little longer. We decided, I went back to council and said, you know, well, we're doing all these projects together. This is one that we probably can do a lot of the prep work in-house, but it'll probably take a little bit of a backseat to the broadband in the Phase 2 project. So that's where we're going with that. We're also watching now what's happening in Boston Heights, just down the road, with our house and Costco and Bass Pro Shop and so on. That nucleus of that center of activity is going to help us market the YDC property. So we're just kind of taking a little bit of a pause with that so that we can see how that's working. We have heard that there may be 1 or 2 hotels that come in there. All of those things are beneficial to the marketing of our project. So that's that project. We've done quite a bit. One of the other projects is the connectivity. We're continuing to work. We partner with the park board on they do some of those sidewalk connections. We do some of them. I think one of the more visible ones we've done recently is the Prospect sidewalk. And pardon me? That's great. Good, thank you. So that's honorary Dennis Hannock sidewalk, because Dennis just wouldn't let up until we understood why we needed to connect those sidewalks. And I'm gonna stop at that point with these are just, I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of some of those projects. I could go on and on about all the other things we've been doing, but wanted to give some time for some questions and answers, and leave a little bit of mystery for 2 weeks from now.
What are your plans for Hudson Drive again? What would you go over that?
We're in negotiations right now to purchase the Ramco property, the old Ramco property, and that's where we're projecting that we're going to be siting Hudson Public Power. We're also going to be running water line up, if council allows us to. We have this little problem with Akron Water right now, and Akron Water's decided that they're not going to allow any tie-ons to their current and existing lines, one of which is the Trails of Hudson. The Trails of Hudson has Phase 2 ready to go, but Akron isn't allowing them to get water to tie, well, they're already tied on, but they aren't going to give them water for that. So we've said to them that we could run our water line over there, and we'd like to run it up to the Ramco property anyway. So that's kind of what we're going to do. And then we're talking with the school department on the relocation of the bus garage and the salt dome to a property closer, all the way up past Terex, closer to 91, which is called the Caberna property, and the city owns that property. And that would be a good location for those two functions. So that's what we're planning on doing with that.
Just a couple of questions. First, on the YDC property, my understanding is one of the reasons the city bought it was to help preserve open space. As you're looking at ways to develop it, will we still be looking to preserve open space, or is that not part of that?
Sure. Quite a bit of that property is already dedicated. Some of it's been transferred the title to Metro Park, and some of the other areas are conservation easements. So the property is like a big butterfly in a way, and right in the middle is where the knoll, where a lot of the upper area where a lot of the buildings were. And then there's some lower property that's conservation easement. You'll see the pond there, and then there's down by the sanitary sewer plant. As it goes up the hill, we'll be putting the public works garage there eventually. So it's going to be clustered. The development is clustered, and then there will be conservation easements around edges.
My other question, sort of based on, the school board just, the last meeting, we went over all the buildings, some of which are older than Ed Sogan. And so we're, had to do a shot, right? Anyway, so we're finding that we're going to have to make some significant investment to make sure the buildings are still working well and safe, et cetera. I'm just wondering, is the city facing a similar situation with plant and equipment and buildings?
The city, one of the other priorities that the council has is our facilities. When we talked together last fall, I asked the council to consider, while your priorities include building facilities for the city, I would like to recommend that we move toward creating some of the taxable growth, revenue growth projects like downtown phase 2, like broadband, so that we can increase the revenue generation and the property valuations, and then we can go into facilities. So our facilities, our public works garage is in leased property. So yes, we want to build a permanent one. It's not a good location, but it's been there for a long time, and we can certainly be there for another 3 to 5 years. City Hall is now in a leased property, so it's, we've got to build a new city center, and we're looking at siting that and so on. But again, we're fine where we are right now, so we can be there for a couple of years. And Town Hall is in good shape, and as I think you know, Destination Hudson has got a great grant to help relocate redo that first floor. So our facilities are in really pretty good shape, the ones that we have, but we do need to build new ones.
Can you comment on any of the empty retail space around First and Main? Has there been any activity that the city's aware of? Any, the marquee properties that have been empty for some time?
So the property that Coldwater Creek vacated is being, I think there's a sports store or something like that that's gone in. It's not been announced yet, but that has been committed to. And the management company is in the process of negotiating a lease for the old Pete's coffee shop. So the Gap has a furniture store in it now. We haven't heard a whole lot of information about where the Dairy Queen was. There's a Varsity Sports Bar going in next to Chipotle. So it's filling up again, most of it.
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
It seems like the broadband fiber is a huge initiative in the city, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the cost of that, some of the benefits, and what some other communities are doing.
Sure. It is a huge undertaking. When we first went into this, we went into it saying, yes, there needs to be better broadband, faster speed, more bandwidth, and so on, for our businesses to stay here or to expand. That's the economic driver, is really trying to help our businesses stay and expand. We also found in surveying the residents that a lot of residents have either home offices or at least work part-time out of their offices and have a hard time maintaining that connectivity when they're at home. So that's why we want to move into the residential sector, but it'll probably be a little down the road. What we're providing is a gigabit, up to a gigabit of dedicated line, if that's what you choose. Our lowest offering is what they consider 25 by 25. Most of us that have internet connection at home have 10/7. So what we offer, and that's like your uptime and your downtime, your upload and your download time, which gives you a lot more capacity, even at the very lowest offering that we have. We have, the business plan we have shows that in 8 years there will be, the return on investment will prove out. In 3 years, the cash flow will prove out, and that's you know, trying to be brief about it, but our initial investment will pay off in 8 years. Our initial cash flow for revenue versus expenditure will be balanced within 3 years. So, so we feel pretty good about it as far as getting into this. Again, because we're not out to make a profit like a Time Warner or Windstream and so on. We'll be, you know, pushing money back into the project as much as moving it out. I don't know if that that kind of just general interaction helps, but I have to tell you a story. Here's just a little bit about what we've been finding with our businesses. We went out and we surveyed a lot of the businesses as well as the residential, and we got some really incredibly bad stories back. When we went out and started talking to some of the businesses up in the Omni office park, and we walked into one business, and you know, it was a room probably about this size, and it had all the cubicles, the honeycomb cubicles. There wasn't a soul in any of those cubicles. And I was looking around, and they said, we have so much trouble with our internet that I finally just told my employees to go home and work out of their house. So they did all of their work virtually because they couldn't keep their connections in the office park. So that's just one of many stories that, and I was actually talking to to Hal Desessar, president of council, yesterday. We were talking, all of a sudden the phone goes dead. He calls back a few minutes later and said, Time Warner phone just went down. So we're continuing talking, and he said, we were talking about a constituent concern, and he said, well, I'm going to have to send you this email. But I can't send you the email because the internet's down right now. But when it comes back up, I'll send you the email. So those are just stories that we hear every day. And when we went into this and got our business plan that said that there was an absolute need to build a model in the community to provide more predictable, better, faster service, we went out as an open network idea first. Open network would be, we'll build the cable, and then we want to offer it to private vendors to come and lease space on our fiber to give. We weren't trying to get into the retail business. And we got 2 vendors, neither of which had done the soup to nuts thing. They were kind of startup groups, and we just didn't feel like we could rely on that, as well as you really need 3, 4 to 5 at least in order to have any kind of competition. So we really went from the concept of not being in it at all to providing the fiber, the cable, but letting private sector do the actual service provision, to running this whole model ourselves. And when you talk about what other communities are doing, there are very few communities in Ohio that have gone this far, that are actually going to be doing this. Hamilton, Hamilton County both have open networks. I think there's 1 or 2 communities that are kind of in the process of working on this as either an open network or a provider. So, but there aren't very many. There are quite a few communities throughout the country that have gone to be a provider of fiber because of the problems that we're seeing. So,
I could just.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jane. Sorry to cut you off there, but we're in got a time schedule here. So, and we're looking forward to having you back in 2 weeks. That'll be exciting. Ed Sogan informs me that fine day was $144. So, thank you all. Yeah. Thanks to our greeters, Evan and Max, and make sure you're out there next week. Okay. And our audio and setup crew, thanks James, Larry Santon, Tom Page, Tom Tobin, Catherine Sines, and Ron Barnhouse. Next week, our speaker will be Kevin Altomar, of Hudson's Restaurant and the Three Foodies. Kevin's going to talk about the farmers market on Saturday. So that should be very interesting. And we have a board meeting following this at 8:30, and now it's time for Rotary. And our drawing is $16 to the payout today and $544 in the jackpot. So I will let Kevin draw this. And the last four numbers are 4049. And it's Den Rich.
Yeah, check that number.
4049, got it. There's
Yep.
your, and here's, it's in there, it's in there,
I
okay,
trust you.
good. Nope, nope. Thank you very much, have a great day.